So in conclusion, folks, if you're after a carryable, strong knife that will do all of your basic tasks, but can take a beating, the Cold Steel American Lawman is one of the best offerings the company currently produces. Whether you can make a knife stronger than this, I don't know. Whether you should make a knife stronger than this, probably not.
What makes a man? Is it the woman in his arms? Just cause she has big titties? Or is it the way he fights every day? No, it's probably the titties. Now you're a man! Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh, now you're a man! Man, my, oh my, man, now you're a man! M-A-N, man. Now you're a moron!
Hey so the Cold Steel SR1 is the knife reviewed today. So this appears to be a knife made for hacking, prying, general internet hard use, as well as winning all the Cold Steel iron proof videos. So yeah, internet hard use. But not to say it isn't a very robust old blade there. Just the level of practicality for you and your life, well, hopefully this review arms you with the knowledge to buy or not to buy. It's also available in a Tanto version. You'll pay about 150 US dollary dues for this one, a little bit more for the Tanto version just because it is newer. In Australia, 250 bucks. So this is a weighty knife, 7.3 ounces. The blade thickness, depending on your source, Cold Steel's description says 5mm. The calipers that I have that are not the best says 4.8mm, and Knife Center says 4.5mm. Regardless of the exact millimeter edge, it's a very thick blade stock. The blade length is 4 inches. Overall, the length 9.3 inches, the handle being 5.3 of those inches. It's G10, comes in olive drab green. The steel in this one is CPM S35VN. Now this is our generation's AUS8, the dual steel that is pretty happily used across many applications, fixed blades, folders, chef's knives, everything. S35VN can really do a whole lot depending on how it's heat treated. Very, very competent steel in most jobs, and in this job too it is very, very competent. It comes with an ambidextrous pocket clip, which Cold Steel are very happily, to me anyway, steering towards, and the knife's made in Taiwan. The degree of fit and finish on this knife is very impressive. Cold Steel make the crazy stuff, but they make the crazy stuff well. Usually things like this, it's a really steep jump from either buying it at novelty shops or buying it from Cold Steel. Not too many people are doing blades like this, or blades like a lot of what Cold Steel does. It's something I really do admire about the company. Anyway, here it is next to a few other knives. Let's start off with my favourite knife, the Spidey Chef. Then another one of my favourite knives, the American Lawman. That's right. So this is a knife that I enjoy a lot. It's very strong as well. It's the same triad looking knife, just a bit more of a carryable Cold Steel. The Paramilitary 2, another sort of pretty well-known user knife. The Delica and the Swiss Army knife above that. And just for the lols, here it is spine thickness wise compared to those two aforementioned knives. What? Buck Marksman. It's a new knife on loan from one of my viewers, thank you Scott. And a Leatherman Charge, which hilariously only has a slight extra weight and dimension penalty to choosing to carry that versus this Cold Steel SR1. So my experience with this knife, I've had it for about a month now. I did carry it EDC a few times. I took it to work a few times. I never really got too much use out of it though. You know how often you just carry a pocket knife and you don't actually use it? So I took it on Dickhead Survival, which is a comedy survival series that I very occasionally do. Despite people seeing, I assume, the opening crawl, they still give me serious survival advice after watching it. Anyway, took it on that, and I did do the hard use stuff with it. Just the internet stuff, the battening, the splitting wood, the cross-grain battening, feather stick making, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, the knife held up very, very well. One thing I did notice was that the pivot screw came a little bit loose. There was no Loctite on it from the factory. So that is one thing, but that is fixable.
Now the pivot's sort of working its way out a little tiny bit. So I must need some Loctite or something on it. Just a bit of a bummer, but I use it for some woods purposes, so, you know, and the steel's held up, it's still sharp.
But anyway, overall, a very strong design. Opening it up, you'll see that this is the triad lock. The triad lock sandwiches the blade tang and the lockback spring between an additional pin for extreme strength, even against jarring type abuse, so that is things like chopping and whatnot. The nested stainless steel liners surround the triad lock as well, so there's a dimension of side-to-side rigidity as well as, you know, your up and down rigidity. So this would have to be one of the strongest folding knives you can get at the moment. It's got a large pivot which is D-shaped, so you can unscrew the blade the pivot screw without having to hold it with a second Torx driver, which is nice. You need a number 9 or 10 Torx to get this one open, by the way. And yeah, it's the large pivot screw itself. So this pivot screw and the pivot sleeve are very, very thick, oversized for extreme toughness, I would guess. So yeah, you can therefore baton with this knife a whole bunch without the lock failing. You'll be limited only by the, you know, size of the wood, really. So yeah, very, very strong, stout knife. So the pivot did knock loose, but all I did was put some blue Loctite on it, seal it back up, leave it to cure for 24 hours. That's the important part, guys. Let that Loctite cure, and you'll do just fine, and it won't do that anymore. So yeah, this steel held a really good edge during my testing as well. It's a factory edge, it's a basic edge, so it's not like one of my crazy 17 or 15 or 12 degree edges. That's not the kind of edge this knife is after. This is that folding pry bar, the genre of knife. And yeah, it's the factory edge did hold. It didn't roll. It didn't. You know, it's still a clean edge. It's not paper slicing sharp anymore, and it never really was. But for what this purpose of knife is, not all knives are made for slicing phone book paper. It's this one is made for just rough and pretty much spontaneous use in times of stress, I would say. Anyway, that's not to toe their company line for too often, because this is obviously a stupid knife as well, but like it's like overbuilt, and they, as I said, sort of make these things to do their proof videos, I think. But then if you did want to use it, I would say that is the designated purpose for it. So soldiers, policemen, firemen, that sort of stuff, you might find real world use for this, but otherwise, jackasses like me on YouTube are just going to push it to its limits more than anything. Pocket clip is tight. It's an ambidextrous one, which I'm loving about cold steel lately, so you can just swap it from side to side without having the second one that you need to keep in the old box or in your drawer or whatever. The G10 that the clip rests against is rough, which makes for a good grip, but then along with the general heft of the knife makes this not the most pocket-friendly beast around. Pulling this one out can make the pants rise just a little bit. See? I'd suggest chucking this one in a bag or in a cargo pants pocket or something like that. It just takes up a little bit too much real estate to be an enjoyable carry. The handle comfort, though, is very, very positive. It's nice and simple. You can choke up, choke forward to get that little bit of extra control if you're making feather sticks with it, which, I mean, you can. You certainly can. Not my choice of knife to do that with, but then again, as I said, this is a knife that is more for either the novelty of it or for the real hard, spontaneous use of it, which is fine, and it will do those tasks very, very well. And that's pretty much my overall comments about the blade. It's a fun knife, it's a big knife. It's expensive, and that's a lot of money to spend on something that is just fun, but hey, this is a user base where we pretty much buy knives just to handle and to make videos with sometimes. Like it's not that ridiculous. And in terms of this type of crazy, Cold Steel really are the only company that are doing it to this standard. Their Taiwan factory makes things to a very good standard, and it's you don't really hear too much with Cold Steel complaints about their fit and finish and their general construction quality. Yes, their designs are polarizing, of course, but really they are a fairly unique voice, and I think stuff like this, hey, let's get our big survival fixed blade, Andrew Demko said, our SRK, let's put my crazy strong lock on it, and let's make it into a folding knife. Like, not many people are saying that, and it almost reminds me of Spyderco back in their old days, where they just used to make crazy knives as well, which they are doing less and less of, although every now and then they surprise us too. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed. The SR1, would I recommend it? Well, I think from when you see this knife in my hand or on the screen, if you want a knife this thick, if you have a practical use for it, or if you think you'll get enough fun mileage out of it. It's quality made, it's made of good materials, and it's one of a kind. Let's just say that. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed guys. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.